Welcome to another episode of How I'm Building This, where we interview startup founders that are in the thick of building their startups. We learn from their mistakes and get practical tips to overcome challenges. Today, we have Sneha from Geeks and Experts. Hey, Sneha, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here, Prateek. It's so exciting to be on How I'm Building This. So excited to chat with you.
Thank you so much for, of course, joining. Very, very excited. But before we jump into your business, would love to learn, who's Sneha, where did you grow up, and what really got you into entrepreneurship?
Oh, that's a great question. I grew up in Bombay in India, so that's home for me. And pretty much have been there, came to the US to study, went back to India, kind of dabbled in the nonprofit space. So I've always been somebody who's, tried a bunch of different industries and verticals. And I think that's what has kept me, really going in terms of even the entrepreneurship, because every day is an exciting day. There's no day looks the same, and kind of didn't realize that I was eventually coming to this path of doing PR and, starting a marketplace that is working with a lot of founders across these industries. And I think it started probably when I was working with some startups back in India. And then I, did some consulting projects in Europe as well with a few startups. And then when I moved to the US, it just felt like it was the right spot, to be in. I mean, there's so much going on. All the innovation happens here. There's so many exciting companies that are getting built each day. And I just felt like I want to be at a place where I can add value to sharing a founder's story, use my writing skills because I enjoy writing, and that's something I'm just very passionate about, even on the side. I mean, even if it's not work related, I enjoy writing. So I guess it was an intersection of that coming to like PR. So that's how Geeks and Experts was born. Of course,
That's amazing.
as you know, through multiple pivots, which we all do.
That's awesome. So was it like a pivotal moment growing up, when you were like, hey, I want to start my own thing someday?
Yes, I would say it's kind of always been surrounded by, founders. Like my parents, my dad has, started his own business. My sisters have started their own businesses. And so it's just been really inspiring to see, the kind of trajectory that life can take when you, kind of take the reins yourself. Because you're carving your own path every day. I mean, each day you just kind of not, I guess, like making the most of the opportunities that come your way, but also going and seeking opportunities. So I just saw that and felt like, this is something that I would want to do eventually. And so, yeah, here we are. And I feel like it's just now put me on that path to, keep eyes open and peeled for like exciting opportunities. Other, of course, shiny object syndrome is always there, I think, for all of us. So yeah, it's something that is just once that button gets clicked, it just feels like you want to keep going in that direction.
That's awesome. So I saw on LinkedIn that you've been building since March 22. Are you bootstrapped? Have you raised some money?
I am fully bootstrapped right now. Yes, we've been building since March 2022, including the pivots that we did. And last year was actually interesting because that was the major pivot we made was after the Techstars program. And I was part of the Founder Catalyst program, which was a non-equity based, non-dilutive program. And so through that, I pretty much, I think, got the biggest pivot, for the startup and for Geeks and Experts. So that was a very interesting experience also.
What is tough about being bootstrapped for you?
The tough part about being bootstrapped is essentially you're kind of at that space where you want to grow or scale, but you don't want quality to get affected. And so you are kind of dabbling with like, should I focus on just the current clients? Because then how do you start scaling when you're, kind of bootstrapped? You don't splurge that kind of money on, marketing or on like hiring multiple or like big teams or like a CRO. So I think the challenge has been just deciding which are the needle movers for you right now and prioritizing that. Because I feel like as a bootstrap founder, of course, there are many advantages as well, which I, obviously would love to share. But I think it just makes it harder for you to, pick and choose what you should be focusing on because, funds are kind of, they're not unlimited, unlike in a VC company, probably.
That's for sure. So you did speak about the advantages. What are some of those?
I guess for me, I've experienced, I couldn't speak from a VC-backed company perspective because I haven't experienced that. But, having chatted with a lot of friends, having seen what's out there, I feel like both have their pros and cons. And for being a bootstrap founder, I think the pros are you get to decide every day, like which direction you want the company to take, and you can move super fast doing that. Like when we made our pivot, it was completely almost like overnight. I mean, we were of course ideating with it, so much before, and then we just flipped it and decided that instead of being like a peer-to-peer or one-on-one consulting platform, we're going to become this fractional talent marketplace. And that happened so quickly. And we obviously saw results from that also really quickly. And even in terms of our, sales and outreach, I would say earlier we were focusing on very early stage founders, but we decided very quickly we need to move up market. Again, just shifting our strategy, shifting our, kind of messaging, all of this, kind of happened super fast because I guess you are taking the decisions as you go, as opposed to maybe updating investors or getting feedback from. Of course, you can get feedback even from your mentors and investors, but I think that is one advantage. And the other one is, I would say, just kind of deciding the pace as well, which I mentioned earlier. Like, there's no, I mean, there's an ambition to want to scale, but there's no pressure. Like, let's put it that way. I mean, I guess it's a sweet spot or a balancing act there that you want to grow, but you don't want to burn out while you're going.
Yeah, that's for sure. You spoke about going upmarket, and I just think that's so interesting. I think there are so many founders who are sort of selling at a market that they perhaps should not be. How did you decide to go upmarket? That's one part of it. But then the second piece of it is that as you decided to, of course, go upmarket, what are some of those tactics that you took that essentially helped you to get there?
Yeah, that's been such an interesting thing to just follow and see is you don't really know until you go out there and try and sell or upsell. And I feel like I was doing that, also is just restricting to, okay, these are the companies that we can create maximum impact for. But then I kind of flipped it and decided to go up market because, of course, budgets were, kind of tight in the early stages. So the companies that we were trying to sell to, they needed the services, but they didn't always have those kinds of budgets. And it's hard to like create impact or add value when you are, kind of constrained in terms of what you can offer or the budget that you can work with. So I obviously love to still work with some of those founders, and I'll find ways to, maybe do it pro bono or do it just at a discounted price. But there is a majority that, I want to build out in terms of the expertise of going up, upselling or, up market. And so one way I actually figured out how to do this, or, I'm still kind of navigating that path and double clicking on it, is going to kind of hubs or nodes that, open up the network for you. And I'll give an example is, of course, entrepreneurial networks. The other one is VCs. That's something that we have a strong relationship with a lot of venture funds where we can add value to their portfolio companies. And so sometimes also working with the the funds themselves to do PR for them. So there's kind of been an interesting journey to, see who are the big players or the big stakeholders that you eventually want to, get to, and then getting them to believe in you, to believe in the product, to believe in the services. And then that opens up so many other opportunities, and access to so many other founders, which you probably wouldn't have had if you were just staying in the, early stage companies.
Yeah, that's for sure. You also did, of course, Techstars. What was Techstars like for you? I mean, I did Techstars here in Chicago about 2 years ago. It was so much fun, learned so much. But I'm just very, very curious because every time that I ask another Techstars founder, everyone has such a different experience. So I'd love to learn more from you.
Sure. I actually just enjoyed that 3-month engagement so much because it just gave me like a very solid community to, immediately connect with. I mean, ours was a remote program, so it was 30, women founders across the USA.
Oh, nice.
And it was just amazing to, have that kind of support system because you need to see other people fighting the same fight. I mean, that is literally how, how you can actually keep going, is just brainstorming or having a sounding board. So for me, the network itself was like amazing. The other thing was just having, mentors. I think it's so underrated to be able to, just write an email to somebody and say, hey, I'm really stuck. I need to chat. I need some perspective. And these are mentors who have done, amazing things. They've exited companies, they've bootstrapped and sold, they've got, companies acquired. Like they have so much of experience and knowledge to gain from, that for me was a big win. And I always say when anyone asks me also about, an accelerator experience, I feel like it is what you make of it.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't guarantee getting like a check at the end of it, or you can't guarantee closing like a big enterprise company as a client. But I think the more you put into it, the more value you add to the network, the more you stay in touch with some of the connections you made. Because I mean, I'm talking, 1 year ago, having completed the program, or maybe a little bit more than a year. And I'm catching up with, some of the folks next week for a coffee
Nice.
because, somebody's visiting from Philly. And so a bunch of other Techstars founders from the city are just, grabbing coffee. And I think those kind of things kind of require like a give and take from both sides. So yeah, overall, I would say that, it's the experience is what you make of it.
That's awesome. So on your website, you say PR talent as a subscription.
Mhm.
What's that pain that you're solving?
The pain we're solving is, I think, like, we were chatting earlier, is a lot of founders are doing amazing things, but they might not always get the TechCrunch article or the story, saying that they've raised millions of dollars.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that these stories are so important and so meaningful that they need to be told. And that's why we are creating a platform where you can, get a PR specialist. You can get basically fractional PR services as opposed to signing on like a big agency like Ogilvy that's going to charge you maybe $15,000-$20,000 a month. They're going to make you sign like an annual contract to be a client with them. I mean, all the big agencies probably have, a lot of those models. And so we felt like there's a need for something like this, in the seed to like series A, B stage, because that's a pain point, which a lot of founders, they don't know which way to go, or how to kind of address the PR services. Because yes, there are, like, somebody called us the slow fashion or the sustainable version of the gig economy, because you have Fiverr, which is like the fast fashion. You pay $50, you get a logo design.
Yeah.
When it comes to PR, you can't expect something to happen like overnight or in a weekend. So you want something that's a little more agile and nimble, and that's what we're hoping to solve for, is just being that go-to platform where if you have a funding announcement, you have created a new feature, or you have a new product launch, you have new partnership, you kind of get access to the PR services for, let's say, three months or 6 months, whatever is your comfort and bandwidth, and then we focus on the goals and the deliverables that you have, as opposed to putting like 10 people on the account and everyone doing like a bunch of different things, keeping it way more cost effective.
That makes sense. So as someone who is in the startup space, I know for a fact I have no clue about PR and how to get my name out. What tips do you have for other startup founders who are trying to figure this out? How should they think of PR, and how
Yeah.
should they use PR as a mechanism to get their name out?
I love this question. And the reason I love it is because so much of this can be done DIY in the early stages,
Okay.
when you're still refining, your story, your pitch. And so I encourage a lot of the founders who, are still in that, stage when they can't hire external support or they don't have budgets, is basically to start building out your story and connections with journalists, from the day you start. I mean, these things take so much time. Like, that's the expertise we bring, is that we have those finesse relationships with the media, the journalists or the outlets that cover stories. But so much of it in the early stages, is stuff that you can kind of try on your own. You can be active on LinkedIn, connect with journalists, send them, messages with maybe an interesting newsworthy piece, or a story or an angle that, makes you a thought leader in your space. And you can do this in multiple ways. You can do it through LinkedIn. You can do it through platforms like Coded, because journalists are also on tight timelines. They are looking for sources on something very specific, and they kind of would be more than happy to, if you are an expert and you pitch them. There's a good win-win there, because they can actually include some of your comments or your expertise in their articles, and you get a feature. They get value added because they had a tight deadline to meet. So I encourage a lot of founders to like be active on Twitter, like, go on #JournoRequest. Look for any journalists who are looking for any topics that they might be interested in talking about. So there's a bunch of those things that you can do, which is more like reactive or responding to their requests. The other portion is, of course, the proactive bit, which is just building authentic relationships with them. I mean, since, Activated Scale is in like sales, it's in works with a lot of founders. There's probably so many data points, so many interesting trends that you are seeing, which industries are hiring a lot of SDRs, what's kind of the future looking like in terms of fractional sales representatives, and just picking some of those newsworthy and making them newsworthy, because it has to be relevant for the journalist, right? I mean, even the biggest announcements you see in terms of funding, etc. There's a big splash because maybe there's something very newsworthy in that, because we live in a world where there's so much going on that you have to kind of stay relevant. And so what I encourage founders to do is add value and build those relationships both for the long term.
That's fair. So with your pivot, how did you go about winning your first few customers that were willing to pay you to solve their problem?
Ooh, this one was, now that I think about it, it was kind of like a stressful time, because you kind of, pivoting is scary, because it just feels like, oh my God, how many times are we going to keep doing this trial and error, or is it going to click? And so for us, it was a lot of feedback actively from the customers, to be honest. It was, figuring out from them, hey, like, if this is not what you're looking for, what are you looking for, or what is something that we can help with, or what is a service we can provide? And just responding to their feedback, but also being very active in terms of social listening. So being, whether it's, seeing LinkedIn or seeing Slack communities and seeing what are founders really, looking out for. Like, is there a particular service that, they keep sending requests for, and meeting them where they are. So I think the kind of push that we were doing earlier with one model was not working, and this was more like a pull approach. So it was the founder or the business owner themselves or the marketer themselves saying, I'm looking for this, and we're like, okay, we move there, instead of trying to force fit this. So that's how we won our early customers, was literally being active on these platforms, sending a bunch of DMs, doing a lot of these informational kind of chats with them to see, hey, like, is this something that we feel like there's a need, and we can offer up something that works for your budget, works for your company, and kind of found that this was a space that was not heavily saturated. I mean, I won't say that we're the only ones, because I feel like there are always other players, but it is a space that, it's a vertical that we're niching down in. And I think the other thing that I would add in terms of pivot was not being afraid to niche down, because I felt like that is something that, a lot of times early on, it just felt like I'm going to be leaving so much money on the table if I don't, if I give up on these verticals, or if I'm not that platform for all the founders to find all the services. But I think that is so wrong, because you just kind of get lost in the noise if you're not got that laser focused approach. So that was something also that helped us win that customer, because we just built those capabilities, case by case, got some success stories. And then we were like, okay, you know what, this is the direction we're going to stick to. And maybe later on we'll, expand to other verticals.
So you said push versus pull. So how does, how do you define push versus pull? Is it more, inbound versus outbound purely from a tactical sense? And if so, what does your inbound game look like today?
Oh, inbound game. That is something which I am actively working on. The inbound game is honestly something that we're focused on through some of these networks that I chatted about earlier, whether that's partnerships with the venture funds, whether it's partnerships with entrepreneurial networks. So the inbound one is basically something that I want to make sure that, clients we service are happy with our, kind of success. And they are the ones who give references or referrals to other founders. So that is purely how I want this to grow, is through referrals, word of mouth, because it is something which you can spend a lot of money upfront on, like marketing or advertising and things like that. But I think at this stage, that is the flywheel that, I would love to see grow. And so we're still working on that, because, you want that inbound game to be super strong. In terms of outbound, it is a lot of, founder-led sales. It is a lot of, putting yourself out there, attending events, attending like meetups, and just talking about your services, because I think in today's world, if you are not actively doing that, or you don't have many avenues where you are talking about your services, it is hard for somebody to find you, because somebody else will probably reach the founder or the business faster than you if you're not active on those platforms. So that's what I would say at this stage.
That's awesome. So from like an outbound perspective, what are some of the things that you're doing today that seem to be working exceptionally well?
I would say from an outbound perspective, a lot of it has been, again, going back to like relationship building. So some of these sales cycles are, a little longer. And so maybe we're talking to a client, since earlier in the summer, they're evaluating the services. One of the things that I've found helpful is being super mindful of adding value to them, even other than the services that you offer.
Yeah.
Because I think as a business owner yourself, like you understand that somebody's dealing with so many things. So the outbound, of course, is like, cold pitching, sending emails and just sharing what you're doing. But then the next layer is if they respond to that is being, okay, what is your next goal for the quarter? Like, what is something that I can help you with? Or an interesting opportunity or an award opportunity that makes sense, and just sending it along, whether they choose to file that opportunity with you or with your services, but just letting them know, hey, there's something here that might be of interest to you in case you haven't checked it out, in case you missed it. Because, just putting yourself in their shoes and understanding that they probably have as many things to deal with as well. So I think that has been something that has kind of helped keep the relationship going, and you're keeping the conversation open, because it's not a no, it's just a not yet.
It's just a not yet. Yeah, that's amazing. So, Sneha, I just have to ask you this. You've been, doing this for the last 2.5-ish years. What has been the most crappiest story that, that you've done so far to get your business till here?
There's scrappiest and there's crappiest. I'm just kidding. The scrappiest, I would say the scrappiest is, let me think. There are so many different ways we've kind of, built this out. But I think the scrappiest thing would be like reverse engineering, exactly where we want to get to, and then piecing together the services or the offering. So let me put it this way, like we were chatting about the pull version, right? So it was figuring out like who is looking for what kind of services and then running to go get that in whatever shape, way, or form. Whether that is, opening up the network, whether that is sending DMs to like literally everybody on LinkedIn that who can help you. And I think that has been something that has helped me not be afraid to ask, because I think earlier it would be, about like that kind of fear of like getting rejected or somebody saying no to you. But I think the scrappiest things are the ones that actually, help build case studies for you in the early stages. You have to really do things like they say, do things that don't scale. And so for me, I think that was the most, kind of intense version of it was first finding that need and then going to run to like fill it.
Yeah, that's fair. All of us as founders have made a ton of mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that you have made now looking back that you wish that you hadn't made?
Oh, this one is a loaded one. And I would definitely say there were so many, but the biggest one is definitely being too scared to pivot and just waiting too long, or being too married to the original idea, and, kind of being afraid that, people will think that the first version didn't work, or nobody actually cares. I mean, I remember when we pivoted, we changed the name, we rebranded. Nobody had, there was maybe 5 people were like, oh, you've changed the name, and that was it, So being afraid to do that was, I think, a big learning for me, because now if you ask me, I'm kind of like, I even forgot that, that whole version existed. And it's something that I love talking about now, because it just makes you feel good that, you came out of that. So I think one would be being afraid to pivot or change, your trajectory. And the other one would probably be also waiting too long to upsell. I think that is again something which, you kind of felt like, no, this is the audience, they need your services. But I think when you push yourself out there and you actually, kind of talk to more people and see what kind of services are out there, what kind of budgets exist, you open up so many more opportunities, as opposed to having that very like, narrow vision of like, this is who we will serve and that's it. You can have like a premium version and a basic version. So I feel like that is something which also I, could have probably done earlier, but it just was something that I was waiting to get ready for, but you're never fully ready,
The one thing that's not spoken out loud is about managing mental health as a founder. I know for me, the highs are just crazy high. And I know I talk about this a lot on LinkedIn that the highs are just too high, the lows are just too low. And I mean, for me, it's been 3 years down this road and I still haven't been able to figure out what that middle ground is. How do you manage your mental health?
I so agree with you. I feel like it's something I learn and relearn again and again. So yes, the highs are definitely low and the lows can be like crazy low. And I would even say, I mean, similar to you, I mean, you have family back home. I have family back home. Like being away from, family sometimes also just makes things harder because you have so many things you can't really explain. Like if I'm chatting with my parents, like for me, a lot of it is like, how do I give them context of like, what is
Yeah.
going on over here? So for me, managing mental health has purely been about like drawing some of those boundaries, which I think takes a lot of time to realize because you're just constantly, on the move. You're constantly thinking about, whether you have things lined up for the weekend,
Yeah.
work related, or for the week. And for me, like that boundary was just getting so blurred, because there was no short way to cut like checking Slack or checking your LinkedIn. So for me, one was trying to draw those boundaries. I think the other one would be just about kind of thinking in terms of what are the things that bring you joy. Like for me, it is getting a good workout in, reading a good book, spending time with loved ones, and those are things which I definitely feel like in between I had you know kind of punished myself that till you don't see that success or till you don't get this one client, like
Yeah.
restrict yourself or just overwork yourselves. And then I realized that there were so many days when I would be neither working but not fully relaxing.
Ah,
So it just wasn't healthy. So it was kind of stuck in this limbo, and that's when I realized that nothing's really going to happen overnight. I mean, this is a long-term game. So just spending time doing things that you love outside of work and not you know kind of being in that 9 to 5 zone that is the only thing that matters. So I think that would be one. And again, I think the community that has really helped me on my low days. I'll just pop into the Slack and touch base with another founder. I'd be like, it's been a rough week. Like, let's catch up. Like, let's just do a virtual hang, like for 20 minutes. And it's just been so helpful to like talk to them or just share where you're at, because sometimes you're so close to the elephant, you don't see
yeah.
it, that they can just say something which is like super straightforward. And, it was so obvious, but you never saw it. And that just, kind of makes you realize that this is about like that community. It is about, managing your long-term goals. And of course, obviously I'm a strong advocate for if anybody needs external support, there are so many ways you can get that as well. Because yeah, it is hard as a founder to explain to somebody who's not in your shoes
Yeah.
what you're probably doing.
Yeah. That's for sure. Do you tend to take weekends off, or do you do like, I don't know, no meeting days or things like that?
I did try the no meeting days actually, and I'm quite a fan because I feel like context switching sometimes just makes me, lose a lot of focus.
Yeah.
And for me, like doing like maybe a Monday with no meetings, just catching up on like work stuff, getting my schedule in helps a lot. And yeah, weekends for sure. Like I definitely try to like not be doing like work related stuff. I might like read a book that's about like business or case studies or some interesting bios there, but it's not necessarily like okay, let me sit and like hash out like a bunch of I don't know, proposals or do a bunch of like marketing things in the pipeline. So
Yeah.
because that's never ending. Even a weekend won't help.
Yeah. So from a product roadmap perspective, what can we expect from Geeks and Experts?
Oh, that's an interesting one, which we're currently like literally, thinking about in terms of what is next or what to build out there. In terms of product, I think the next goal is definitely to build so many more case studies in house and build out the capabilities there, so that we can fund the development of a product that will do the matching. Because right now, even though it's a marketplace, there is so much of it that is managed manually, or like I'm sure you feel like this. I mean, maybe you've been through that path and I can take some tips from you. But
Yes.
what we are currently building out is let me put it this way. There's an Amazon basics version, which is in-house capabilities and services that we can provide. And
Okay.
then there's the marketplace. So pardon me for comparing to Amazon here. But then there's also the
We're not.
marketplace in Amazon, right? And
Yeah.
so that's what we kind of have right now is the two-pronged approach, which is the marketplace of PR specialists across industries from, fashion, beauty, luxury, travel, fintech, finance, everything. And then what we're building in-house are core capabilities that then we can, as boutique agency, also take on. And so that is kind of the focus right now is to build out both of those sides and then invest in building out a product that will kind of become its own flywheel. Because right now, yeah, managing all of that manually has been quite taxing.
I can imagine. So, Sneha, how can folks keep up with you? How can folks keep up with your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I more than happy to connect on LinkedIn. You can find us at geeksandexperts.com as well if you are looking, for PR services specifically. And I also love writing about a lot of this stuff we chatted about. So I do that as often as I can on Medium. So there's a lot of founder, case studies or experiences there of, getting maybe yourself into podcasts, like a lot of helpful information that, will just hopefully, give you a little bit of an idea of how you can do that DIY PR in the early stages. So yeah, all of these resources are something that I, happy to offer.
Awesome. Sneha, this was so much fun. I know I've learned a lot from you. This is just, the PR piece is just such a black hole for me. And just like through this conversation, there's just been so much learning. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing to chat. And I look forward to staying connected.
Absolutely, Sneha. Thanks again.
Awesome. Take care.